Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now, here's a man who would never walk anywhere when I have the option to be driven in a car, Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Rob Has a Podcast. We are live after episode number 2 of The Amazing Race 28. Very excited to talk about a fun night on the race here with our chief Amazing Race correspondent here on RHAP, the great Jessica Liese. Jessica, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. This was a fun episode, and what a great destination.
A little behind-the-scenes story for before we came on. We were about to go live, and Jessica took a look at the monitor behind me and took a look at the way I had spelled Columbia, Columbia, and said, Rob, I will not go on the air tonight if you have a misspelling on the monitor behind you. You march back in that back room and you fix that damn monitor.
That's exactly how I phrased it.
Yes. So we are fixed. We have our spelling is correct. Jess is happy.
I'm copacetic.
Yes. All right. Well, Jess, anything I can do to make you happy, to get your knowledge on The Amazing Race on a night that I felt like was a night that was filled with errors on The Amazing Race. And maybe outside of one team, I felt like there were a lot of mistakes being made out of our 11 teams on The Amazing Race tonight.
Yeah, very much. It was, much like your screen behind you, it was riddled with errors.
Right. I was no exception. Tyler and Corey were the only people, and Corey dropped the emerald, so even they made some mistakes tonight. So we'll talk about a night that was filled with slip-ups for all of us, both covering the race and on the race here with you guys live on Rob Has a Podcast. Of course, we've got our chat room going. Very excited for those of you guys who are joining us live. We had a nice turnout for people between the live audience and people who watched the video recap last week. So welcome aboard to any new viewers that we have. Well, very excited to talk about The Amazing Race here with you guys this season. And we're going to get back into it every Friday night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time. We are scheduled to do our first Amazing Race exit interview this Monday with your first team that's out, Jess.
I mean, you're killing me, Rob. Your team is absolutely destroying my team.
Yeah, Marty and Hagan will join me on Monday, and hopefully we'll get that up for you guys either Monday or Tuesday on the podcast. So looking forward to chatting with them, and hopefully the beginning of each week we'll speak with the most recently eliminated team all through Amazing Race 28. So, Jess, why don't we jump into this? And I guess we need to start with talking about the aforementioned Marty and Hagan, who decided to walk to the detour instead of taking the cab.
Well, that could have been a lot worse than it was, but that was still pretty bad.
Yeah. Just how big of a Cardinals sin? I remember in our preview when you drafted them, you talked about how you felt like that they were a super fan, and they didn't tell you they were a super fan. They showed you they were super fans of The Amazing Race. Is this a sin that is unforgivable in your mind?
I feel like somebody that has watched the show a fair amount should pick up on the fact that you don't ever let your cab go. Mm-hmm. Like, even if the only season you ever saw was last season, you would know that.
Yeah, how much of last season, I know we talked about that a lot on Survivor, of what did the team see up until, was that, like, at what point did they record this?
Actually, no, you're right. When it comes to fall seasons, they don't get to see the whole season. So they would have filmed this in November, I believe.
Okay, so they didn't get to see the whole fallout with
No, they would not.
But
that's not a unique scenario. That's something that happens a lot. And they should know that, granted their cab was not a great cab, but if your cab is halfway decent, you don't let it go.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had thought that Darius and Cameron were going to be the team that was going to be out. I really felt like they were getting the boot edit in this episode from the moment that they started talking about when they were at the airport and they weren't being assertive, and then it felt like that they were the team that was making a comedy of errors. And then I was actually surprised when they pulled ahead at the very end.
Yeah, they seemed like they were getting that edit where you don't see a particular team in the same frame as any of the other teams, and I thought that was going to endure for the whole episode, but then they showed up at the end and they weren't actually that far behind.
Yeah, good for them. They were making me nervous. I was really worried about them. Then they started burning the fish, and it seemed like they couldn't get anything right when it came down to making the dinner, but they got it straight. They got it straightened out.
Yeah, and you know, I got to give them props because like the first couple of times I was watching people make that fish, I was like, that looks really amazing, and I wish I was eating it right now. And, you know, Darius and Cameron cured me of that.
Yeah.
Like, I saw their fish, I'm like, nah, don't want it anymore. I'm good.
All the way around, Jess, what did you think of this leg?
I thought this was a great leg. The tasks, you know, they weren't necessarily the most brain-busting tasks we've ever seen on this show, but they were tied in enough to the area. You know, we went on the beach, so we took advantage of some warm-ish weather. It didn't look like it was, you know, punishingly hot. And, you know, it's a new destination, so they have basically the entire universe of Colombian things to choose from when they're building their legs. So you knew that you were going to have some halfway interesting tasks.
Yes, and you have all the exciting things that you can go to Colombia to do. You could either cook a fish or make a tent.
Yeah, well, beach
The
party.
Colombia Board of Tourism is blowing up tonight.
Yeah, you make a tent out of, like, scraps and driftwood.
Yeah. No, I mean, forget the Amazing Race. This was like I was watching Survivor. Build a shelter and cook a fish.
That's true. You know,
What show am I watching?
maybe they're trying to recruit Survivor. You know, they're going to run out of locations for Survivor eventually. They're going to end up going back to Samoa. No, get a new place. Go to Colombia.
Yeah, this is like how much can you build the shelter? How much can you cook the fish without burning it? Then cook the rice, and then serve a portion that's not too big, and don't burn it either. No, I did like the mud task. I thought that was exciting. But for the Amazing Race to go to Colombia, how big of a deal is it for you, Jess, when they go to a new location?
When they go to a new location that's clearly like them scratching the last few, like scraping up the bottom of the barrel.
Like scales off a fish.
Like scales off a fish. Like, you know, Monaco didn't excite me all that much. Malta was okay, but also not that exciting. Colombia is a big fish.
Yeah.
Colombia, right? Colombia is great.
Don't tell Jocelyn.
It's a place that's been on my bucket list for a very long time, and it's a place that they especially made it look very, very good in Amazing Race Latin America. So it was one of those places, I think, when the show started up, you had a few countries that they were never going to go to because at the time, you know, in 2000 when they first started filming, it was not, you know, you probably couldn't go to Colombia the way you can now. And there are a lot of countries like that maybe Bertram hasn't quite gotten back around to. And so it's really exciting to me to see them realize that Colombia is actually a pretty happening place right now, and that there's a lot of stuff that an Amazing Race leg can do.
Okay, well, let's talk through it chronologically and sort of because the teams were really spread out tonight, so it'd be very confusing to talk about it in any of the other ways. So, in terms of the teams going to the airport, of course, we found out that it was a nice bounce back week for Scott and Blair. We found out that maybe what was holding them back in week one was that they were carrying way too much gear for Blair.
And apparently no gear that's actually useful on the Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Like, so, this just blows my mind. Like, what?
Well, it blows Blair's mind, too.
What do you think you're going to be doing on this show? Like, that you're going to need a curling iron but not a bathing suit.
Right. Yeah. And you had a hairdryer, too, right?
Yep, and a hairdryer.
Yeah. And you need all those adapters to go to these different places. Where are you going to plug it in?
Well, you can buy one adapter. Like, we have a thing that's basically one adapter that works in, like, 50 countries.
Now look at you. Show off.
Yeah, well, I would pack for the Amazing Race a little bit better than a lot of these people, I think.
Okay, so we found out, and maybe that's what was holding them back, because they went up from 11th to 9th place this week for Scott and Blair.
Yeah, that's a huge jump, Rob. We should be worried.
Hey, they did a speed bump, too.
Yeah, they did do a speed bump. That was, speed bumps are back to, old speed bump.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple that were pretty hard, and I like it when there's a little bit of a challenge to the speed bump. There was no challenge here.
So it turned out that there were 3 flights that were headed to Colombia. There was the first flight that was leaving at like 8:59, and then it was like a 9:27 and around a 10 a.m. or so flight. Now, I don't understand what happened to Darius and Cameron. That they talked about how in their confessional that they were saying boy, it's hard for us to be assertive sometimes. We're not always assertive. We're really just, chill and laid back. And we saw them like taking pictures with people at the airport. But I don't understand how they were in the first 4 teams to leave, and then they ended up on the 3rd flight.
Well, they brought up that they are not assertive people. And it seemed like maybe they didn't know exactly which counter to go to, and they were afraid to ask. Like, that's my guess. Like, that's what that seemed to be
like one of those guys get lost and they don't want to ask for directions.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I mean, but aren't they on The Amazing Race, Darius and Cameron? Like, I mean, how unassertive could they be in this moment?
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's such a obvious skill that you need to have to go on this show that I never even considered it before.
Like, to go to the counter and say, hey, can I have a ticket to the next place we have to go to?
Yeah, or even to just say to someone, is that the counter I need to go to purchase a ticket?
Well, it's interesting that this is coming off of the first leg, and then we don't know necessarily how they got to. You mean, I would assume or presume that production got them their ticket to go to Mexico City in leg 1, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So
there was no actual travel strategy involved in that first leg.
So I guess this is the first time going to the airport. Like, what do we do? We just they just give us a ticket? Like, oh, we have to go to the counter to go buy the ticket?
Yeah, well, I think in some cases they are told to go to a specific counter, and in some cases there are like we've seen it before. There's a marked ticket counter where there's like little Amazing Race flags, and you have to go to that particular one. And maybe they were thrown off by the fact that there was none of that.
Okay, so the teams came across and got on the 3 flights, and they had to go to their first task, which was the roadblock, which was called Who is a Hot Mess? Or We're a Hot Mess. And so they had to go and dive into the mud and find an emerald. Now, our own Mike Bloom was outraged on Twitter. I saw him tweeting about what is wrong with the Amazing Race. They called it We're a Hot Mess. Is this the best he can come up with? Why was Mike so upset about this, Jess?
Was he outraged on behalf of the hot mess community?
He was outraged and he was indignant. I liked it because going back to Survivor San Juan del Sur, I believe that there's an episode called We're a Hot Mess where the titular line is from the 20s Amazing Race veterans.
Yeah, and they weren't wrong because they kind of were sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly,
the
I thought the
Hunapu tribe.
I thought the bigger concern was going to be some of these teams trying to figure out which one of them is the bigger hot mess.
Yeah. I'm not sure why. We have to get Mike Bloom on to tell us why he was so upset with We're a Hot Mess for the name of this task. All right. So then, talk to me about this task. Did you like the mud diving task, Jess?
Yeah, I thought this was a great way to kick things off. And it's something... The emerald angle seemed a little bit shoehorned in, but... this was also something that Mike Bloom made me realize. We've had 2 episodes back-to-back where someone has had to dig for treasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an exciting season.
Is this going to be a recurring theme where every episode you have to find some local treasure?
Right. Now, Jess, I have to give kudos to The Amazing Race here and CBS and the entire production team because they spared no expense on The Amazing Race tonight because those were huge emeralds. I can't even imagine the street value of the emeralds that the teams were digging up because, I mean, they were pulling up emeralds the size of your fist.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. And
yeah, like screw racing for $1 million. Just like take one of those emeralds and run off, right?
Right. So even a bigger prize. I mean, Corey dropped that emerald out there, and I mean, some lucky person, some lucky tourist is gonna have a windfall on their hands.
Yeah, no kidding. Like you get fly first class all the way back.
Right, and I just hope, my big hope and prayer is that they were cruelty-free emeralds.
Yeah, well, it seemed like it. The mud volcano, there's not a lot of child labor in the mud volcano.
Okay. So, Jess, what I didn't understand is the teams went into the mud pit, and it seemed like that the first move people made was, okay, well, let me put my head under the mud.
My guess is that you probably had to. Like, that was probably part of the task.
They told you?
Well, they said go take a mud bath and find the emerald. I would guess you probably had to submerge your whole body at least once.
But I feel like everybody didn't do it, did they?
It seemed like everybody did.
Everybody did? Okay. So they had to go and find a satchel with an emerald, and some of the satchels had different color, probably just as valuable jewels, but they weren't emeralds.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird because emeralds don't necessarily have to be green, I don't think, or there's like some variance in shade. So that seemed a little weird to me.
All right. Well, the teams were going through it, and so we had a couple different people that went through it rather quickly. Other people struggled a bit more. You mentioned going back to Blair, so she didn't have a bathing suit going into this.
Yeah.
What was the problem here?
I don't know if it was that. I couldn't tell from the questions she was asking if it was that she did not have any bathing suit whatsoever, or if the bathing suit she had brought with her was a thong.
Right. But she knew she was racing with her dad, correct? It wasn't like some sort of like Mark and Bopper situation where her other partner couldn't end up going on the race and they just stuck her with somebody that she wasn't planning on racing with?
Yeah, no, she knew all along that her partner was going to be her father, and I would guess you would probably want all of your clothing to be something you wouldn't mind your dad seeing you in.
Right.
But this could be it, or my alternate theory is the question she asks her father is, do you have anything spandex that isn't a thong? And
right.
His response was a little ambiguous, so maybe he's the one that has the thong.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, yeah, is Scott's bathing suit a thong? We should write to Scott on Twitter.
I think we definitely should. I'm sure that's something that he's dying to be asked. And
now,
he's clearly the freakiest freak of the season.
He might be. So then, was it Jocelyn that ended up giving the bathing suit to Blair?
Yeah, she had like some kind. I don't know if it was a bathing suit or if it was just like, stretchy underwear bottoms that covered more. But
yeah. Okay, so Jess, did you have any issue with strategically giving a bathing suit to somebody who doesn't have one?
I think if you know that there are other teams behind you, which there were in this case, it probably doesn't hurt you to like pass along a little goodwill.
Right. I mean, does this enter into the equation at all for you in terms of strategy, or is this just the kind of thing that nerdy podcast people overthink about The Amazing Race?
I think it really, you don't know what you would do in the moment. And like if this is somebody that you liked, that you're getting along with, that you'd kind of like to see there longer, and there's not a lot of downside for you, like you'd go ahead and do it.
Because isn't this a move that, anytime somebody attempts to do anything like this, it just ends up where they're like the green team and then just like hated for the entire rest of the Amazing Race, and everybody is trying to screw them over. Like, if anybody does anything underhanded.
Yeah, I mean, okay, first of all, we got a sidebar here. I am being told in the chat room that all emeralds are in fact green.
Okay, we'll get it together, Jess.
Yeah, I know, because
so
if I didn't say that...
You're not perfect tonight.
If I didn't say that, people would be tweeting it at me all week instead of, like, people tweeting it at me for the first, 20 minutes that they listen to the podcast.
The comment section would be a buzz.
Yes, comment section would be blowing up. People love it when I get shit wrong,
That's
all
what
right.
they live for.
It is what they live for. So, yeah, I think going back to that, the worst case scenario, someone asks you to borrow something, and it's kind of prisoner's dilemma, right? Somebody asks you if they can borrow something, you loan it to them. Best case scenario, everybody does well, everybody's happy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asks you to borrow something, you give it to them, they screw you over, they beat you, you get eliminated because you gave them a thing that you needed. Mm-hmm. There's that. Someone asks you to borrow something, you don't give it to them, they get eliminated because of it, and you never see them again. That's upside. Somebody asks you for something, you don't give it to them, they're still in the race for a really long time, and they hate you, and they talk you up to everybody a la the green team. That's the worst case scenario. I think that's the worst of all the worst case scenarios.
Okay, so be nice on The Amazing Race is basically the moral of the story.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, there's an upside and a downside to everything, and as long as it's not costing you anything, you might as well. And if the only thing it's costing you is like a pair of shorts,
yeah,
you have other shorts.
Okay, talk to me about Corey and that he got through, he got the emerald, and he was coming down the stairs, but then he dropped it. Was that the right decision? And again, they came in first place, so really what could we nitpick here? But was that the right decision to give up looking for it and go back and find another emerald?
Yeah, well, emeralds are green. Grass is green. Emeralds lost in the grass.
Seemed like it would have been. Oh, it was in the grass? It looked like it was on that ladder.
It looked like it might have fallen underneath the ladder, and how are you going to even get it if it's under the ladder? Yeah, forget it, man. It's gone.
It's as good as gone. Forget that emerald.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste too much time. Like we saw last episode what happens if you waste too much time looking for things.
Yeah. I had in my notes, should Jocelyn have pulled the I can't spare a square move with Blair when she I can't spare it, Blair, with the bathing suit? No. No. Okay, so then we ended up with the teams headed off to the detour, the teams that were successful, whereas the teams that were on that second flight, like Marty and Hagan, who apparently had a very slow taxi, and Darius and Cameron, they were headed off to the mud pit. Marty and Hagan ended up really struggling as well there, as they could not find the emerald.
Yeah, that was hard to watch. Like, those finding things tasks are always hard to watch because someone invariably is terrible at it.
Yeah, and then it was always that thing on The Amazing Race where the team is like, I can't do it, commercial, and then they come back, oh, okay, here it is.
Yeah, but that kind of didn't happen this time. She was still not doing it for a really long time.
Yeah, okay, well, it was a harbinger of what was to come as the teams headed to the detour, and so Pop-Up or Paria, what did you think is the easier task here?
I think I would be more confident probably cooking the fish.
Yes, I agree. I feel like the fish task, even though there were some teams that were really having some disasters, it seemed like that, other than for Tyler and Corey, putting the tent together proved to be problematic for almost every other team.
Yeah, well, with those building tasks, it always varies a lot. Like, you don't know how much detail they're looking for. Like, sometimes you just have to get it structural, and other times they're going to be nitpicking every single little detail and not telling you what you're getting wrong.
Jess, do you think that there was a thing where the teams seemed to all want to do pop-up, and it seemed like the teams that were first, they all did making the tent, and then after a while, all the teams that started to show up late all did cooking the fish?
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I would guess there may not have been enough tent kits to go around for everybody.
Yeah. So all the teams that started there between Rooster Teeth, Dana and Matt, the Frisbee Bros, Tyler and Corey, they're all working on their tent very quickly to go. Now, what was so complicated about it? It was that the poles had to be sort of angled at a 90-degree angle, and people didn't exactly know?
They had to be buried to a correct height, and they had to be twisted in such a way, like they had to be perpendicular to the poles that were going across the top, I think.
Okay. So we had all the teams searching for the correct poles, and this is where Dana and Matt, who were an early draft pick of mine in our fantasy draft, look like that they had it all together, but are showing signs, Jess, of being our Amazing Race bickering couple.
That's what it's looking like, Rob.
Yeah. We found out that Dana, she is either always very binary. She is either always a 1 or a 10, not a 1 or a 0 like my wife is always at. And it turns out that Matt is always at a 5.
I guess we have this team every season. I think it's a great way to describe it.
What's your number?
What's my number?
Yeah.
I'm at like a -3, Rob.
-3? Oh, no. Yeah, I don't know what my number is.
Yeah, well, yeah, I bet Nicole would be able to tell you what your number is.
Hey. Well, for Nicole, everything's always at a 0 or a 1 for Nicole. That's her scale of things.
It's very binary.
Yes. I think, yeah. Well, she's like Dana, except Dana's at a 1 or a 10.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's better to be at a 1 or a 0 than a 1 or a 10.
Yeah. So the teams were struggling with different things. We had, with Dana and Matt, they didn't realize that they needed to have their pole, or the V part of their pole, angled. It seemed like the Frisbee Bros, they were struggling with the depth of the pole.
Yeah, they didn't really know how far to bury their pole.
They did not. And so it seemed as though Tyler and Corey were the only people that really didn't run into problems with this.
Yeah, their pole skills were,
on point.
Yeah, they were on point.
Yeah.
They know how to handle a pole.
It was long enough and strong enough, and they seemed to be able to get it. And then you also had to sort of like lay the fabric across and sort of like get the pole through the canvas of this little canopy. But then at the same time, you had like sort of like the back of like an RV, just like blasting music.
Yeah, it looked like they were It was that they were building a car park for their mobile sound machine to go into so that they could have the beach party, except there were like 12 of these things all blasting music, and it was all different music.
Yeah. Now, Zach and Rachel were the last of the teams to show up and attempt to build a tent, and they would get the dreaded Amazing Race hashtag of the read the clue. Read your clue hashtag for Zach and Rachel.
Yeah, but they didn't say read your clue, so you don't get points for that.
Oh, come on.
Hey, I'm not the one that I'm not the arbiter of this. I've already seen the scores.
You're being such a stickler.
You don't need that help, Rob. You really don't. You're beating me like 85 to 54 at this point.
Okay, so you needed to build they just started building their tent in like some arbitrary place, and apparently you needed to build your tent in front of one of the RVs that were there.
Right, so that they could pull in and park there. They built it on top of a table, and you can't like drive through the table.
Yeah. Okay. So the other teams that started to arrive now everybody that came after this, they were all working on the fish.
Yeah. I think they might have run out of poles.
They were running out of poles.
It's always a sad situation when you run out of poles.
Very sad story. All right. So then we got to where we had our clever team, Aaron and Jocelyn. They started working on the fish, and we found out about something that was a very traumatic moment which happened for Jocelyn. I pulled the clip on this.
Good.
I want to talk about what was going on here. So hold on, I got my Survivor clips open. Okay, so this was what happened with Aaron and Jocelyn, and this is Jocelyn talking about a very traumatic moment.
So I had a traumatic experience when I was a kid with a fish. It got one caught in my bathing suit inside of the thing, the little crotch.
What the hell happened, Jess?
It sounds like she was swimming in an area where there were many fish, and one of them tried to get a little bit friendly with her, and she didn't appreciate it.
You did not like that.
I mean, I heard there's a fish in the Amazon, and
yes.
You can speak to this.
Well, that's something totally different.
I hope that fish was not a candiru. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. So she was swimming. This is a fish went in her bathing suit. Yada yada yada. I can't ever eat a fish again.
I would want to, if like a fish was, I would want to get the revenge on the fish. I would want to eat all the fish after that.
Eat all the fish. If and when Team Clever is ever eliminated from the race, first exit interview question is fish story.
Yes. We definitely need details on the fish story.
So what happened with the fish? I have to know.
Yeah, I think I'm glad your priorities are in order, Rob.
Was it an eel?
I'm pretty sure it was not an eel.
Not an eel. Okay.
I don't think I'm picturing like a minnow.
A minnow.
But I could be wrong.
You think it was a very tiny fish?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, it probably had to be if she was a child and she had a bathing suit. Like, it's probably not a very big bathing suit. Probably not a very big fish. Not a very big kid.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is like between bugs crawling in people's ears on Survivor and fish going God knows where.
Make no mistake, there is no comparison between a bug crawling in your ear and gnawing on your eardrum and a fish going in your bathing suit. Like, the ear is much, much worse.
All right, Jennifer didn't say I'm never going to eat another bug again in my entire life.
That is fair, she did not. And, we didn't even see what happened to that bug after they killed it.
Yeah, we have no idea.
I would have eaten it for revenge.
Yeah. Okay, so the other teams also were struggling with various degrees of cooking their fish. We saw that Scott was dropping the fish on the floor.
Yeah, remind me not to go eat at their house.
Yeah, we had teams that were undercooking the fish. We had teams overcooking the fish. Seems like nobody could get the fish exactly right.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a little bit of a detail-oriented aspect to this, but I cook at home a lot. I think I'd be okay with this task.
All right. Then Brittany and Jessica, they were fine with the fish, but they were cutting themselves.
Well, sharp objects, That's another thing to add to your list of things to practice, like drive, stick shift, learn how to swim, handle some sharp objects.
Yeah. All right. So we got to the point where it's coming down to Darius and Cameron are going to show up, and then also Marty and Hagan are showing up. So Darius and Cameron, they get to the place where the clue. Well, first they go to the detour without getting the clue to get to the detour. How do they pull that off?
Well, that happens a fair amount. Like, especially if you're being driven around in a cab. And especially if the cab driver, we've seen this happen before, where all of the cab drivers are talking to each other. And they're like, yeah, I've got some people from the TV show, too. What did you do with your TV show people? Oh, I had to take them here, so that's probably where they're going to want to go. And they might not be able to be very good at telling you where they have to go, so just take them where I took these people.
Okay.
You know, so that's probably what happened.
And people are like, wait, you didn't get the clue? They're like, we didn't see it. So they had to go back. They go back and see the clue. Then somehow, also, this is when Marty and Hagan, like, got dropped off there. Right? Yeah. Did they get dropped off like where the clue was? They just got dropped off very far away from where the task was.
It sounded like they got dropped off where the clue was.
Okay. So they end up saying like, okay, well, let's just walk. I hear the music.
Yeah, they couldn't have been too far away. Like, I hope this is something you're planning on asking them, was like, how far did they have to go? But even like a few hundred yards, if you can have a car drive you there, is probably going to be faster.
Yeah. Well, I got the sense it was more than a few hundred yards.
That was pretty loud music.
Yeah. Well, it was a big party. Like, you had, like, 9 SUVs, like, with huge speakers in the back, like, blaring music.
Yeah, I'm thinking of, like, James Earl and Denise having to walk all that way in India last season. It's probably a similar amount of time they took.
Yeah. Eric Tremblay in the chat room is saying they followed the drums. They were trained. They were like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, they didn't even look on the ground first to see if there were drums on the path.
Yeah. I had a bad feeling about Marty and Hagan tonight. Once, now who's the mom? Marty is the mom?
Marty is the mom.
Marty was in the cab, and she told Hagan this.
Please, sir.
El Raso. El Raso. How do you say race in Spanish?
Yeah, they were on El Raso. Please hurry, we're in El Raso.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well, does it?
El Raso.
I will only refer to the Amazing Race from here on out as El Raso.
I think that's fair.
El Raso.
Is that correct, Jess? You're multilingual.
I'm not fluent in Spanish, so I could be wrong, but I do believe that the word for race is El Raso.
El Raso.
Yeah. Well, it was an El Foot Raso for Marty and Hagan from that point on.
This is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Like, you don't run a race with cars on your feet.
You do when it's El Raso.
El Raso.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. So they end up getting there, and then at this point, I felt like, oh well, Marty and Hagan. This was like almost like a 5-hole task for Marty. It's like, hey, she is a flight attendant. They serve food. They don't cook the food, but it felt like
the food comes pre-cooked in a little foil thing, and they just have to bring it.
You can. She's a mom. She is a flight attendant. There's some sort of level of service.
This is not a 5-hole rub. This is a giant stretch.
Compared to Darius and Cameron, I mean, who do you want cooking you a meal? You got like 2 19-year-old guys.
Well, their mom went to Harvard.
I guess so, but they're book smart, not street smart.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. Their fish looked pretty awful too.
Yeah, well, they were really like, I mean, their fish was like, the fish that they were serving, like, just put another one on, put another fish in there. There's no way they're approving this.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
Yeah, but ultimately they ended up getting it together, and so Marty and Hagan, even though they got through the task quicker, then they had to like, okay, well, now we got to start walking up. Now, one of the things that I saw that people were asking on Twitter, could Marty and Hagan have taken Darius and Cameron's cab? No, because their stuff was in it.
Right. If they had somehow sweet-talked the driver into removing Darius and Cameron's stuff from the cab, then they could have taken the cab. But if their backpacks are in there and the driver's like, yeah, no, go away, this is not your cab, there's not much they could do.
What a great Amazing Race moment it was as we saw Marty and Hagan sort of like walking, and then when Darius and Cameron like see them, they're like coming up, and I believe we got a "oh snap" from either Darius or Cameron, which I always appreciate.
I know you're a fan. I don't think that was them, Rob.
That wasn't them. That was Jeremy.
I was like,
Yeah,
that
I
sounds
didn't have
a lot
time
like
to pull.
Jeremy Collins.
Like, it's a quick turnaround from when I watch this show and we do this podcast. So I didn't have time to pull their oh snap, but I figured I already had
Did you
one.
at least pull my drop where Tyler and Corey are talking about how they need thicker poles?
Just for you, Jess.
Okay, good.
I know. This one is thick. Where are the thick ones? Thicker.
Yeah.
Good.
It was a very inappropriate night on The Amazing Race all the way around.
Yeah, I know you had to struggle to find inappropriate Survivor moments, but they just kind of kept cropping up on Amazing Race.
Yeah. And then there was this one. I don't even know what this was, who this is or what they were talking about.
Okay, I'm gonna slide this guy in real easy. Please be good to me. I'll be good to you.
Whoa.
Whoa. I think that was the fish.
That was
going into the slippery oil.
Oh, I thought you were talking about with Jocelyn.
Oh, Rob. This is a family show.
Family show. All right. And then even Phil got in on the action this week. This was Phil when the teams showed up at the mat.
That was insane. You all came in on top of each other there.
Whoa.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's pretty racy for the 8 o'clock hour.
That was very racy. Yeah. That there was even a Phil on Twitter tonight that he tweeted or Instagrammed the picture of him sort of gawking at one of the women getting out of the mud and talking about how oh, I wish I could have gotten in there. Talking about Phil, take it easy.
And nothing's stopping you, buddy.
He wanted to
get in there.
After he was watching the women get out. But, all right, so then we had ultimately this moment where Darius and Cameron, they end up passing Marty and Hagan. Marty and Hagan end up being eliminated. So let's talk about placement tonight. Okay, so Tyler and Corey, they finish up with a second-place finish last week and move into a first-place finish this week, really looking like the class of the Amazing Race 28 at this point.
Yeah, they're looking great. Not making any mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, really, I think now they were my number one draft pick, and I was very excited to have them on my fantasy team, but in my wildest dreams, I didn't think that they were coming in second and first 2 episodes.
No, I thought they were going to do well. I thought they were going to be the team we'd want to win. I didn't realize they'd be powerhouses. I mean, right. I figured that going into last season. I thought Green Team was going to be, we're going to like them because they're super fans, and then they turned out to just dominate.
Be dominant, right.
So is this a Green Team thing then?
Because they're green? I don't know. I mean, what do you feel like has given them the edge so far? In 2 legs, you can't say it's a coincidence yet. I mean, I guess maybe you could. What do you feel like that they've been able to do that the other teams haven't been able to do? Do you feel like that it's their knowledge of the show? Do you feel like it's their communication style? What have you seen that you've liked so far from them?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with their knowledge of the show, and they are one of those rare superfan teams that seems to be able to take practical lessons out of what they've seen on the show. Mm-hmm. And I think they really know what they're doing. They know to expect a variety of things, where we have other teams that don't necessarily know what they're in for and really have no preparation whatsoever.
Randy says that they're good at assembling and building things. Do you think that is that sort of a skill set that you feel like is like a background in production of things like videos? Does that sort of help you when you're putting together something that's like a puzzle or like a tent? Is that sort of that same sort of okay, I know what this is supposed to look like. Let me put the pieces together?
Yeah, I think some of it is this is like project management skills. I think it's a bigger bucket than just building things because we're not going to have a building things task every week. But we do they are self-starters. They're clearly very good at handling their own business. And I think you don't get to be as successful as they are if you don't have some sense of order in your own life.
Now, we haven't seen them really even hit a bump so far through 2 legs of the Amazing Race. Do you think that there is a potential type of task that we haven't seen yet that you think could fluster them?
There's a lot of stuff that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen a task where they have to memorize a lot of things. We haven't seen a task where they've had to, your favorite kind of task, Rob, where they have to learn a choreographed dance. We haven't seen one of those yet. We haven't seen language learning tasks. We haven't seen something that's really intensely physical.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of categories of things that we really, we're on episode 2. We got a lot of race ahead of us. So it'll be interesting to see how broadly their skill set's going to be tested.
Jess, your top draft pick, the Frisbee Bros, came in at number 2 this week. It was a bit of a bounce-back week for them. Were you impressed with their performance here in week 2?
Yeah, they did not disappoint. Like, they showed me why I picked them.
Yeah. Overall, a pretty uneventful week for Frisbee Bros, other than struggling with the depth of their polls.
Yeah, they had a little bit of trouble with the depth of their polls, but
yeah.
they figured out where to stick their polls.
Okay. Team Rooster Teeth, another strong showing for them. They come in third place there.
Yeah, they were solid. I really found myself liking them. Like, I liked the way they talked to each other. They seemed like they didn't make a lot of mistakes. Yeah. I felt good about that pick too.
Them too. They have not been frazzled at all. Pretty uneventful 2 legs of the race for them too.
Yeah, I think they bring a maturity into the race that a lot of these teams don't.
Okay. Now, Dana and Matt, we started to see the seams a little bit between this team, specifically when they were trying to work on putting the netting into it, and Dana was sinking into the ground, and she was yelling at Matt. Do you feel was that a momentary moment of weakness, or do you feel like that is also a sign of things to come for them?
This could be one of those teams that falls apart because they can't communicate, or it could be one of those. They could be one of those Haley and Blair teams where they just scream at each other the whole time, or one of them screams at each other more than the other one, and they just wind up not even being able to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens there, but I felt I felt better about doing that in week 1, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, a little bit better. They were not quite so upset with each other.
Okay. All right. Then who did you have in 5th place tonight?
Who did I have in 5th place?
This was the group that came in. Was that all when they came in all at once?
Yeah, that was around the time they all came in at once.
Okay. So who do we have? Chat room, let us know. So I have Aaron and Jocelyn are 6. Who was 5th?
Yeah, that was. I don't even know if that was shown on screen. It seemed like they didn't show everything.
Okay. Well, we could figure it out by process of elimination.
Yeah, I didn't write them all down.
Okay. So I had Sherry and Cole are 8th.
Yep.
Scott and Blair are 9th. Marty and Hagan were 11th. Darius and Cameron were 10th.
So by process of elimination, we had the Instagram girls in that group of.
Yeah, and Zach and.
Yeah, and Zach and Rachel, who are the team that I predicted this was going to be the team that I kept forgetting was there.
Yeah. Why? They got to read your clue.
Yeah, but they're also there's 10 teams left, and there's going to be one where invariably I keep thinking, I'm missing something.
I'm sorry, Aaron and Jocelyn were 5, and then so somewhere in there.
And then 6 and 7 were Zach and Rachel and the Instagram models.
Okay. So what about the Instagram models? We hardly spoke about them tonight other than getting a cut on the finger. Did they do anything to impress you tonight?
Well, they didn't do anything to not impress me.
Yeah.
They seemed okay. They seemed like they're handling their business.
Okay.
I really got nothing bad to say about them.
Sherry and Cole, who the chat room was so hard on last week, did they have a bounce-back week for you?
I mean, they were solid. Cole needs to dial down the volume a little bit. He kind of yells at the camera like he's on Big Brother.
Well, we like that.
Maybe you like that. It's one of the reasons I don't watch Big Brother.
Yeah. Well,
I like the way they're one of those teams. I like the way they get along with each other. That's really kind of nice to see. They're not yet reaching the echelons of Mother Boy for me yet, but there's a lot of race.
Yeah, it's rarefied air for Mother Boy.
It is. It's going to be hard for them to be Mother Boy.
So Scott and Blair. See, I feel like that Blair is the contestant with the volume issues for me. I feel like that she is a bit of a shrieker.
And she talks a lot too. I've noticed she seems to have the hang of confessionals, because all we get is Blair telling us exactly what's happening on screen as it is happening, in very literal terms.
Yeah. Well, we didn't mention Scott and Blair on their speed bump. Can you talk about the catch of the day for Scott and Blair?
That really just seemed like one of those speed bumps where it's like there's some people doing a thing, and you need to go stand around and pretend you're also doing a thing
helping
for a certain amount of time, and you can help them, and then you can go.
Yeah, I was just screaming a lot with those fish coming in.
Yeah, she really did not like the fish, and I was kind of surprised that they then went and did another fish task.
Yeah, her and Jocelyn. Well, I think that we've sort of like gotten to the bottom of this, that they had to.
Yeah, I think they must have had to, because I would imagine that after you freaked out that hard at fish, you would not want more fish in your life.
Yeah. When Scott dropped the fish on the floor, did you think that the 5-second rule was in play?
I don't think the 5-second rule applies to beaches.
I lived on a beach once, Jess. I can assure you that it did.
Well, you were also starving.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Okay. And then also, so Cameron and Darius, they were team number 10 this week. Could they bounce back from this, Jess, or should we be going into next week's episode feeling like that they will be the presumptive second boot on The Amazing Race?
If they can learn from their mistake, which is not always true of every team.
What do you feel like their mistake was? Because I felt like that there were a couple of different errors that they made tonight.
Well, there were. There were. I think their big one is they're not speaking up for themselves, and they need
At the airport?
At the airport was one, and then there was also the cab driver just kind of took them where the cab driver wanted to go, and they didn't really question it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive in their gameplay style, and I think it's very hard, I think, for teams that regard themselves as very book smart to kind of catch up to the street smarts that you need to do well on this show.
Yeah. Cameron and Darius really dodged a bullet tonight, because there are not going to be many more legs. And they admitted this, where somebody forgets to take a vehicle to a pit stop.
Yeah, at least they are aware of this, because I feel like some teams would go through this kind of thing and not realize what a gift they had been given.
Right. This was almost like they came in last and there was a non-elimination leg, because they should have been eliminated on this leg.
They definitely should have.
They should have. Are you surprised we haven't seen an express pass so far in 2 legs of The Amazing Race?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think the Express Pass loses its potency if you have it every single season. And I think we've seen all the different iterations of the Express Pass that you can without, like, you know, they haven't injected anything new into the Express Pass dialogue in a very long time. So it's okay if we don't even see one at all this season.
Okay, before we get into the questions, Jess, also, any final words you want to say about Marty and Hagan, the first team to be eliminated from The Amazing Race, one of your draft picks, and I believe I said it at the time, I thought it was a reach, but you...
It was a low draft pick, Rob.
I feel like it was not your last draft pick.
No, it was not my last draft pick, but I believe it was my penultimate draft pick.
Okay. I think I commented that I did not. I thought it was, at the time, I had them lower on my draft board. But just talk us through Marty and Hagan. What will be your lasting memories of Marty and Hagan?
They were a gamble to put them on my team, for sure. But occasionally you'd have a team...
I believe at the time you said you felt like they had the highest potential out of the 3 child-parent teams on the board.
I think that is what I said, yes. And I based that mostly on Marty's occupation. And it seems like, you know, it was a gamble and it didn't pay off. And I'm okay with that, because I still got 4 teams left, and they're all 4 very good teams.
You feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. And then anything else for Marty and Hagan you want to make sure that we ask them on Monday?
Mostly how much time did they waste?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how long... I think it was hard to tell how long Hagan was in that mud pit. And, yeah, it just seemed like I didn't ever have high hopes on them to win, or I would have picked them much earlier, but I thought they were going to do a little bit better than this. Okay.
All right, let's dig into these questions, and why don't we start off with our questions for Jess. Jess, your buddy John has a question. Should Marty and Hagan attempted to steal the Vine Bros cab? We have said definitively that was not an option on the table.
Yeah, we kind of already answered that.
Okay. All right. George Wise said, was the building detour faster than the cooking detour, or did it just seem that way because all the pack leaders chose the former? In a vacuum, just, which is the easier task?
I think the cooking one seemed easier to me.
Yeah, I think if you knew how to cook, I felt like that you could have just, banged through that. And it did feel like that Marty and Hagan, and again, it's hard to tell from the edit, did seem like that was the case for them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay. Let's keep going. Travis Payne says, are the speed bumps a harsh enough penalty?
I don't think
like you felt good about this one.
This one, this was too easy.
Too easy. I mean, on a scale from, what was the one last year that was very tough?
Oh, I don't even remember.
It was a Team Texas had to do, right?
Yeah, Team Texas had to do. It was basically like getting U-turned on a roadblock.
Yeah, and basically our scale is from
ice cream.
Yeah,
Beekman Bros eating ice cream to
the Beekman Boys eating ice cream to what Team Texas had to go through last season. I would say this is probably square in the middle. I feel like that this is about what it should be to be a speed bump.
I wanted it. I would have liked a little strategy component to it. Like, I like it when if you really use your brain, you can get through it faster.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have liked it to be a little bit tougher, but yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you're not mad at it. All right, so this is from Bleeding Blue Boy. It says, do you think that Tyler and Corey are taking an extra emerald affected Marty and Hagan's mud pit struggle enough to change the legs outcome? Well, that's interesting. So you have to figure there's 11 teams in there. Marty and Hagan are last. 11 emeralds are already gone. How many? I mean, the emeralds are super valuable. I mean, I don't know what the total budget the Amazing Race had for emeralds are. They might have blown the whole budget for the whole season to buy all those emeralds. How many extra emeralds do you think they had, or did production have to go scramble to find Corey's and throw it back in the mud?
Yeah, they might have had to run into town and buy another emerald.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know.
They just had hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash sitting around?
Yeah, they bring it each one of them has like a big suitcase full of cash. Like, how do you think they pay out the winners at the end?
That's true. You could buy it in credit also.
Yeah, I suppose you could. You have those credit cards where you buy the plane tickets. Those have absurdly high limits.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so this is a question from James Gallimore. A lot of the teams seem to be really friendly and helping each other out. Do you think that this will be a theme throughout the season? Well, this was something that I actually brought up in our preview show talking about Marty and Hagan in terms of that I said that they were an outsider in this group of all social media teams, and maybe more so than any other team. That I felt like that in the social media sort of world that everybody inhabits, they were not really part of that. I don't think that ultimately was a factor for them why they were eliminated, but do you feel like that we will see more and more of the teams collaborating?
I think we're going to have to inevitably see some teams liking each other better than they like other teams. Like, that's going to happen at some point. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that it necessarily hinges on what they were doing before.
Do you think that overall, though, do you think that this will be more of a conflict-free season?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot less conflict, especially a lot less than we saw last season.
Because I do feel like that all these teams are sort of in the same sort of fishbowl of like online media. It does feel like, and who knows, maybe we could get teams that are sort of like, more predisposed to fight with each other. But I do feel like that overall, I do think that everybody's incentivized to play nice to some degree, because where it's, say, on The Amazing Race 27, where it's like, you know what, if you're the photographers, I'm never going to see Justin and Diana again. Let me give them a piece of my mind, as opposed to, oh, this is somebody that I may have to work with or I may be seeing on Twitter or in any other realm. I feel like that everybody should probably be on their best behavior.
Yeah, and there's also the component of like why I feel like I have to behave myself on this season, because
that's a good point.
Yeah, if you piss people off on The Amazing Race, like
right.
I would not want to be the person that got on the wrong side of Tyler and Corey, because I'm also getting on the wrong side of Tyler and Corey's fan base.
But I think that's an interesting point in terms of like if I'm somebody that has 5 million followers on whatever. It's like, well, I kind of don't want to go on, people like me. I don't want to go on, The Amazing Race and have people like, oh, actually, Rob is a huge a-hole.
Yeah,
I'm out. I'm out on this guy. He seemed nice on the podcast, but now this guy is a total jerk to everybody.
Yeah, like I seriously don't want like the Rooster Teeth fans DDoSing Rob's website,
Right. Well, yeah. So I mean, it's both things. I think it's like, well, I don't want to, you don't want to
You don't want to devalue your brand, and you don't want to invoke the ire of other people.
Right, both things. Okay. This is from Matthew, who says, did it really seem like the last two teams were that close, considering that they were at the mat together? What do you think the time difference was?
I think if you're at the mat together, it's no more than 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, caught me in a water break.
It's okay. Well, now I'm going to take one, so you have to talk.
Okay, I'll read a question. Matthew wants to know, Voice of Silence wants to know, so Cameron and Darius wasted around 1 hour doing nothing at the airport. Where does this rank on Jess's list of amazing race? Well, we don't exactly know what happened. I mean, based on the edit, they were not assertive, and they got to the airport. Maybe they stopped at Cinnabon. It's very delicious. My friend Gene works at one.
I heard that Gene got trapped in the dumpster area last week.
Yeah, we doesn't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think they just stopped for breakfast? What do you think happened?
I think maybe they've never had to purchase plane tickets at the airport, which who does that anymore, you know?
I guess so. I mean, they tried to go online, try to go on like Travelocity.
Sure, like that would be my first choice. I'd go ask the roaming gnome first.
Ask the roaming gnome.
That's how I always buy my plane tickets anymore.
Okay, Jeremiah Yap says, which is worse, getting a fish caught in your private area or having a bug reside in your ear? I think we've established what? The ear is worse, right?
Yeah, unless it's like both things are chewing.
Oh, no.
Like, the bug was the worst because there was chewing involved and, like, burrowing. If there's chewing and burrowing in both areas, my answer changes.
Yes, okay. So, all right. Well, that's a personal preference, and we'll leave it at that. Okay. So, this is from Anthony. He says, Green Team Power Rankings, Justin and Diana, Brenchel, or Tyler and Corey?
I think we haven't seen enough of Tyler and Corey to be sure, but how are we ranking them? Like, are we ranking them on, like, race prowess? Are we ranking them on attitude? Because Tyler and Corey are at the top of the attitude.
Right. So I don't know. Ask us at the end of the race. It might be.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever done an Amazing Race team ding, marry, kill.
No, we definitely have not.
Okay. All right. Voice of Silence also wants to know. Literally, we got blood, sweat, and tears from the racers again. Are you satisfied with the intensity of this season so far?
I mean, for an early leg, it's pretty intense, and I like that. I hope they keep it up.
Yeah, Jess, I have to say, overall, I don't have any complaints about this season of The Amazing Race. I mean, I feel like that there have been all social media teams that we have come on, and it's week 2, and we're sort of like, ho-hum, this is not such a stellar season of The Amazing Race. I don't feel that way at all. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't feel that way yet.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of people were really not enthused who were longtime Amazing Race fans coming into this season of like, oh, total JTS, jump the shark, and not JETS. Those were the cheerleaders last season. But that I don't feel like this is a jump the shark season at all on The Amazing Race so far.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And, you know, maybe it's just that I had the bar pretty low. Like, I was not expecting anything good out of this season, and so far it's been all right.
That's the key to happiness. You come in with low expectations. That's why, and the Amazing Race All-Stars, the season 24, that's why, you know, in your season rankings, like, oh, it's the worst season, you probably came in with high expectations. Oh, All-Star season.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know at that point how bad it could get.
Yeah. All right, let's do a few more questions. All right, here we go. This is from Erin Schmidt, who says, Blair tweeted that she packed a swimsuit but got rid of it after the first leg. Hashtag still awkward.
Well, I guess we learned something.
Why did she get rid of her swimsuit? Was that one of the things that she got rid of with the hairdryer?
What was her swimsuit made out of? Maybe it was really heavy.
I don't know. I still don't know. We'll have to see it maybe one day when we talk to her on the exit interview. Okay, George Wise wants to know, considering Darius and Cameron were still at the mat when Hagan and Marty arrived, would the latter have survived if they kept their cab? I have to imagine they would have, right?
Almost certainly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you even saw how close they were, because you saw the cab go by Hagan and Marty running down the road.
Okay, so who has the harder cab error to live with, the green team from last season or Marty and Hagan?
Well, I would say Marty and Hagan might have a little bit more. It might be a little more embarrassing for them.
Right.
But I'm sure they reacted better.
I have to say, I'm going to go with the green team, Jess, because I think you can make the case strongly that the green team has won $1 million if they don't have their snafu
true.
with the cab.
And Hagan and Marty just like survive another week.
I think that we might be saying that Justin and Diana are winners of the amazing El Raso.
Yes. Yeah, but they never gave us a soundbite that good.
Okay. Oh, the great Randy Bailey weighs in, who will be with Jordan Parhar this weekend on the reality TV Happy Hour. At Randy Bailey wants to say, now I really love Scott and Blair from the Next Time on Amazing Race when Blair prostitutes herself. Love it. I did not catch that.
There was a moment, I believe the expression was pesos for pesos.
Pesos for pesos?
Yeah.
Like Jeff Bezos?
No, that's different.
Different, okay. All right, Matt Bayless wants to say, Scott and Blair remind me of Pascal and Nalia from Survivor Marquesas. Wow. Anyone else see this?
Nalia was a little too quiet.
Oh, my heck.
Oh, my heck.
Okay. Voice of Silence says, so the team with the least subscribers got booted first. How happy are the producers? Well,
they couldn't have scripted that better.
Yeah. Well, but, you know, you can't really say that the producers told them, like, oh, why don't you just walk, Marty and Hagan? Well, look, it's right there. It's right there.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't happen, but I'm sure that there are worse outcomes for them. Like Tyler and Corey go out first, the producers get upset.
Let me be clear. I'm saying that I don't think that anybody told them to not take a cab to the task.
Yeah. No, this is all on them.
Okay. All right, and that's it. That's the last question, Jess.
Out of questions.
Yeah, great show. Great show.
Yes, great show.
You want to hear your soundbite one more time?
Yes, please.
I know. This one is thick. Where are the thick ones? Thicker.
Okay, I'm gonna slide this guy in real easy. Please be good to me. I'll be good to you.
Whoa.
So I had a traumatic experience when I was a kid with a fish.
Okay.
We're just gonna go through the whole soundboard again.
This wasn't Stephen Fishback, right?
No, I would imagine not.
Okay. All right. So we won't even bother tonight with Jess. Who gets the fishy?
Yeah. No, I think we know who got the fishy.
Yeah. Okay. So, Jess, what is the hashtag for tonight's episode of The Amazing El Raso?
I have hashtag Amazing Racy.
Amazing Racy. Okay, because it got a little racy tonight.
Got a little Amazing Racy.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with that. The Amazing Racy Show. So yeah, this was a wild. Look, Amazing Race is pulling out all the stops for the social media edition.
Yeah, I think it's doing great so far. Like, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we are enjoying it. Very fun stuff. Okay, so we are going to be on the lookout for the Amazing Race exit interview in the early part of next week. Of course, Jess and I will be back together to recap the Amazing Race this next Friday night at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Jess, it was a fun week of Survivor podcast following that Survivor premiere on Wednesday night.
I finally just got caught up. It was all great.
Yeah, talked to Jeff Varner, recap episode with him. Really loved the voicemails with Bryce Isaiah. Thought that was a very fun one. Plus, we talked with the first person kicked off of Survivor this week. So, fun stuff all around. And, hey, let's do it again next week.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Of course, we're also going to do the live know-it-alls here on the West Coast this Wednesday night at the Hollywood Improv. So excited for that sold-out show.
I can't believe how fast that sold out too.
Yeah, look, those shows are a tough ticket to get. So, Jess, looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say in the comments. Anything else, Jess?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. Well, thanks to Scott St. Pierre behind the scenes on this one. Also, if you're a fan of Jessica Liese, and who isn't, except for maybe a couple of
Whitney Duncan
unsavory characters in the comment section. But no. Jess is also going to be with Josh Wigler all season long over on Post Show Recaps, our scripted TV podcast at postshowrecaps.com, talking about the Walking Dead graphic novels after each episode. How about that, Jess?
I'm pretty excited. Our first episode was really a lot of fun.
And also, Jess is going to be joining us this weekend on Most Shows Recapped over on Post Show Recaps, talking about the new Hulu series. What is it? 11/22/63.
Yep, that's the one. I'm actually covering that for the other site that I write for, so I thought, this fits in pretty seamlessly with the post-shows recapped formula.
Okay, looking forward to talking about that with Jess tomorrow. I enjoyed the show. I watched it the other day.
Oh, good. We're going to have a lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions, Jess. I hope you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.
All right.